Hello there. What are you working on?
My next journey. I plan to be the first woman to fly solo around the world. What's wrong?
You look confused.
This piece doesn't have a muse. I can't decide where to take the score next. Usually, the notes just appear in my mind. I'm extremely frustrated.
I know how you feel. Planning out each specific stop on this journey has been challenging.
Please excuse my tardiness, but I decided to set up the rally promoting integration and the destruction of Jim Crow a little early.
That's all right. I don't believe we've met. I'm Isaac Newton, creator of the idea of the 3 laws of physics.
Hello, I'm Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. You may have heard of my opera, The Magic Flute.
Amelia Earhart, first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. Let's take a seat. You mentioned you were destroying Jim Crow. Are you related?
Why, no. I'm Mary Burnett Talbert. Jim Crow is a set of laws designed to segregate the races. As a result of living under these laws, I helped to create several civil rights movements in America.
A woman as a leader? That must have been difficult being a colored woman and all.
Of course it was. Living in Little Rock, Arkansas, where black people were not treated as human beings, life was hard. With all due respect, the rules that your son set in place thwarted the achievement of our destiny. Torture, pain, and sorrow drove me to accomplish what people like you believed colored women couldn't do. After creating several movements and programs, I soon became one of the first colored woman nurses in World War I.
How interesting. I was also a nurse during that war. After serving in the Great War, I went on to break many gender barriers while setting records in flight. This was amazing since I was the first woman to do so.
How did you get started in flight?
When I was 20 years old, I went to a stunt flying exhibition. A pilot saw my friend and me and decided to scare us by diving headfirst towards us. My friend, terrified, ran away, but I wasn't bothered. I watched as the pilot soared back up into the blue, and in that moment, I knew I was born to fly. What about you, Mozart? How did you get your start in music?
My father, a professional violinist, taught me the harpsichord when I was just 3. Seeing potential, he began working with me every day. My father was a big influence in my life. He traveled with me and my sister around Europe. At age 6, we were performing in front of royalty. I can never thank my father enough for the support he gave me in those early years.
Unlike you, my father wasn't a big influence in my life. He died 3 months before I was born, so I didn't know him. My professors at Cambridge played a big part in my becoming who I am today. Without them, I wouldn't be where I am or know nearly as much as I do. Physics is something that truly interested me, which is why I would love to learn more about flight. Could you enlighten me on the subject? What is it like to find gravity, Elphaba?
The name's Amelia, but the feeling was exhilarating. It felt like I was on top of the world and like I could accomplish any and everything. Being in an aeroplane is a great way to escape the outside world and focus on what really matters, my goals.
That's interesting. You seem to know a lot for a woman.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing. Just that when I was growing up, women were domestic servants, not the breadwinners of the household.
I'll have you know, Mr. Newton, that more women are taking leadership roles today. I just happen to be one of the first to do something as visible and dangerous as flight. This seems to be a recurring theme with men, always belittling women and making it seem as if women aren't capable of succeeding in leadership roles.
I agree. Too many times women, especially of color, are being treated as second-class citizens. Why is that? To have dedicated my entire life trying to change the view of women and still witness people like you degrade women for following their dreams is simply outrageous.
I agree with Mrs. Earhart and Mrs. Talbert in that women are capable of doing great things. However, once women marry, they should stay home and take care of the family. I'm a firm believer that men are superior in relationships. Men are the ones that bring home the bacon to keep the rest of the family well nourished.
I apologize for making you upset. My intention wasn't to seem misogynistic. I've just had bad experiences with women in the past. My mother left me with my grandmother when I was only 3 years old so that she could go live with her new husband. I have been very insecure even to this day.
I'm so sorry. How unfortunate. But you should still be careful what you say. Not all women are alike. I see marriage as an equal partnership. Even though I was happily married to George Putnam, I remained my own person with my own goals. I made sure no one stood in the way of my becoming an accomplished aviatrix.
Truly inspiring. Matrimony and the bearing of my daughter, Sarah, caused a personal drive and motivation to change the view of women. With my help, Sarah grew up and was as independent as I. Part of my motivation and inspiration included her dreaming and living in a world where the color of her skin couldn't and didn't hinder her.
That reminds me of the early days in my career when it became increasingly popular for women to express themselves. These daring young women who cut their hair and wore very risque clothing were known as flappers. This showed that women could do what they wanted and that they weren't controlled by men. I thought flappers most inspiring.
The cause was noble. However, flappers showed far too much skin and as a result was taken farther than suggested. The beliefs of baptismal people, being raised and nurtured in this denomination, created the idea that women should respect themselves and not show their body.
I also grew up conservative, being raised in a Catholic family. At age 11, I contracted smallpox. Once recovered, my father thought God had saved me to share my music with the world. Throughout my career, I composed music for the church. Sometimes before a performance, I would pray to God and tell him that if this piece went well, I would compose amazing pieces of music for him.
I also was very religious. I wrote a lot about Christianity. I studied the Bible deeply, along with writings of early Christian leaders. After studying this, I came to the realization that the Holy Trinity was false. Because of this, I refused to become ordained at the Anglican Church, which lost me my job at Cambridge.
You know, obviously people were upset with you for that, seeing as you got fired from your job. But I think it was very brave. Challenging the world to believe in new ideas is something that I love doing as well. Being the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic is definitely not what the world was expecting from me. I try to get the world to believe that new ideas could be good and help push the world into the future.
Women, especially of color, weren't seen as important in my time. Part of making a difference is saying and doing things that the world doesn't expect. A new way of life will obliterate the stereotypes in the world and show what the future could look like if we actually made a difference.
Music was a great way to change perspectives. I love composing in all different types of genres, including symphony, opera, solo concerto, and chamber music. Most people expected composers to stay with one genre and stick to that style their entire career. I, however, did not agree. I love listening to all different types of music. In fact, I helped start the Baroque music movement, which had many contrapuntal parts. Baroque music often caught listeners off guard.
That's something that I enjoyed most about my profession. I was able to learn and tell the world of my discoveries. Seeing the looks on people's faces when they heard of a new scientific discovery was the most satisfying feeling ever. I love feeling like I was making a difference in the world.
That's something that made my sacrifices and hard work worthwhile. Without my endeavors, would we have as many women pursuing their dreams? When I was little, I kept a scrapbook full of newspaper articles about intrepid women in male-dominated roles. Now, I think I could add myself to that scrapbook, and let me tell you, nothing feels better.
For me, the beauty of composing music and performing in front of audiences was enough to keep me satisfied. From my youth, I would play for my family and other people. Even though working my way back up to the top was difficult, I told myself, stay positive, because you're doing what you love most. I just thought of an idea to end my song.
Well, I've got to go do some more research. I think I saw this apple tree out back.
I should go too. My journey around the world is waiting for me. Care to join?
No, thank you. My rally will start soon. Fly safely. Don't get lost.